Welcome back to NRL 360, and this is my position. Why go to the world when the world can come to you? Steve Mascord's in for our first edition of Far and Wide for 2016. Hello,
Benny,
legend.
I saw those scores in the World Club Series and I thought this is a segment.
No.
So thanks for inviting me back.
This segment's, it's not about what you say, it's about what you do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay.
All
what
right.
have I got to do?
Now, let's go international and start here in Australia, if that makes sense to you, Wayne, because the Australian captain, Cameron Smith, took a position on Semi Radra's eligibility to play for the Australian Kangaroos. Let's have a listen.
It makes the Kangaroos stronger, but if we're looking over at the overall picture of international football, it'd be great for him to represent Fiji as well. At the end of the day, we're trying to promote our game globally and create strong teams right around the world. State of origin is state of origin. We don't want to lose the concept or the fabric of state of origin. It's New South Wales versus Queensland.
Well said by Cameron Smith. I mean, my point is that we've got 28, maybe with Lee and London, 30 full-time professional clubs in the entire world, and 26 or 28 of them are in England and Australia. So if England and Australia start picking players on residency, who's left for every other country playing the game? Nobody. England and Australia should take a stand in the interest of the game and not use a residency rule. That's what I believe.
Well, you've said that also because I read your article over the off-season when Mel Meninga hinted at pulling together an Australian A-side. Mm-hmm. And you basically oppose anything that is going to drag players out of representing, say, second-tier nations. Yeah,
I mean, basically, the NRL is like the NBA or the Premier League, right? It is the flagship competition. Certainly, commercially, the Premier League is. Maybe soccer fans would argue otherwise, but certainly the NBA flagship competition for basketball in the world with players from all around the world. So the NRL's responsibility is not just to Australia, and I think there's a conflict of interest there when the NRL is paying Mel Meninga's wage. The NRL is allowing him to pick a B team or an A team, which brings in players who would represent other countries. I think the Australian team should be in a performance unit and they should be independent. They should be overseen and partially funded by the NRL, but they should also be kept in line by the NRL.
Quite essentially, Australia's just too big an elephant in the room. So the International Residency Award rules around the world shouldn't apply to rugby league. The 3 years, Semi Radradra is now qualified to play for Australia because of the international sporting rules that they've come up with. But rugby league should be different.
It's not just shooting fish in a barrel; it's tranquilising them first. If Australia just take all the players they've got access to, players come to Australia to play rugby league. That's why Semi Radradra came here. He shouldn't therefore then be playing for Australia, in my opinion. But also we have to provide an incentive for these guys so they're not out of pocket to represent their home countries. We have to do something there too. That's the other side.
Let's get on the plane now and go to Scotland.
Scotland. I spoke to Keith Hogg. Boys, he's the chairman of the Scotland Rugby League, and they are in the Four Nations at the end of the year, and he's out here getting hold of players. So
Scotland on their own are in the Four Nations.
You weren't aware of that, Kenty?
No.
All right, okay.
Well, that's why we get you on the show.
Scotland are in the Four Nations at the end of the year. They qualified, and no, the fourth country has never won a game in the Four Nations. We know Samoa went very close a couple of years ago. So he's out here recruiting players who are properly eligible for Scotland. I spoke to him at the NRL, asked him who he's been speaking to and who he's been approaching.
The best example of that's Ewan Aitken. Went down to watch the game this Sunday. Ewan's grandfather was from Scotland, from Glasgow. He's qualified for Scotland. He's going to be playing, and he really gets what it's all about. There's a lovely but sad story. His grandfather died at the age of 31, and Ewan's father didn't really know his own dad. So you can imagine what it means for the family when Ewan has the chance to play for Scotland.
So how have the players been receiving and responding to your approaches?
Very positively, extremely positive. And the most important thing for us is that they actually get what Scotland Rugby League is all about. Rugby League in Scotland is small, but obviously we hit way above our size when it comes to international competition. And these guys genuinely understand what heritage means and what playing for Scotland actually means.
Keith Hogg saying they bat way above their size. He's fired up already.
He is fired up already. There's an amazing list, like Lachlan Coote, Kane Lynette, Peter Wallace, all these fellas, Keith Galloway, all hopefully going to be playing for Scotland at the end of the year.
All right, bring me up to speed on this fan brawl we've heard about that it has involved former Australian NRL players in the Huddersfield team.
Yeah.
Big news.
Sadly, yesterday was the 20th anniversary of the start of Super League, and we got some terrible news with crowd trouble in the stands at John Smith Stadium on Easter Monday. It was Huddersfield against Salford, and a couple of players, Justin Carney being one of them, and also Junior Sau. They actually had to wade into the stands to get their family out because basically, apparently, one fan ran on the pitch and was kicked out, and then his friends who'd been drinking started picking a fight with the stewards, and some of the players' wives and girlfriends were down the front and they were getting crushed. So we've got an amazing picture in the media of Junior Sau, a player in full kit with his hand on the chest of a fan. And it's being investigated at the moment by the RFL. I tried to get some developments before I came on air, but at the moment they're just keeping it all in-house. They've got an investigation. But Salford are already in trouble over alleged salary cap breaches. So as we know, the clubs can be held responsible for the actions of their fans. So Salford could actually be doubly in trouble. We don't know how many competition points they might be left with if they're punished on both fronts.
Now, you've got about 30 seconds to tip us into your train spotter of the month.
Well, this is a very special train spotter because I spotted him on a train. It's Aaron Wallace here from Fox Sports, and he was actually seen at the game at the weekend on Saturday night at Allianz Stadium in a Dewsbury jersey. And you can actually do a pub crawl on the train across the Pennines. I went to a game early in the season, Super League season. I just got on the train, minding my own business. There was Wally with a bunch of Wigan fans doing the pub crawl. So there's a train spotter that I actually found on a train.
It's my favourite. It's my new favourite segment. Do you reckon you're going to be able to come up with a train spotter every month?
Mate, let's make it a mini-series. Let's do an hour of train spotters every week.
Great to see you and good to have you back here in Australia. Make sure you stick with us on Fox Sports 501. On the couch with Sterlo is up next. Peter Sterling goes one-on-one with Panthers 1991 Premiership hero Royce Simmons.
I remember looking